so much. I wanted to acknowledge our visiting guest from Lakeside, Joe Garcia. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yes. I also want to acknowledge these beautiful orchids, spider orchids, that Leslie shared with us. They're just amazing. Just amazing. So today I'm talking about cultivating your vision. Woodrow Wilson said, "We grow by our dreams." So having a vision is necessary for life to move forward. I remind you that last week we talked about how static the universe is unless there's an observer. And our lives are static also unless there's a vision, something pulling us forward, something calling us into our highest and best selves. And systemic issues can't be dealt with unless there's a vision for something different. Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind wrote this: "If day by day we have a greater understanding and a clearer concept, if daily we are realizing more of truth and applying it in our actions, then we are on the right path and eventually we shall be made free. It is a wonderful experiment and a great adventure to make conscious use of the law, to feel that we can plant an idea in mind and see it gradually take form." It's an adventure to hold a vision and allow the universe, that law of mind, to put it in place, and knowing what we need to do, the steps that we need to take when we have clarity around that vision. So we talk about imagination, and Norval Goddard said this: "Imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire and then you believe it to be true. Imagine the already existing wholeness within. Far too often we are seduced into taking action that are fueled energetically by fighting against something." And Ernest Holmes reminded us to always be for something and against nothing. And I think in these times, our political times and our social times, we fall into the trap of being against things. And being against is creative, just like being for and having a vision is creative. So when we're against something, we are creating. And often we're creating our worst nightmares, our most upsetting situations and circumstances. But when we have a vision, we have an idea of the perfect outcome for ourselves. And we don't have to figure it out, but when we have a vision for what we wish to create in our lives, either personally or socially. Now, so I have to ask us, each one of us, what does it look like to be at peace? And I think that's what happens to us, is that we have no clear vision of what peace looks like, what it feels like. And because we are moving away from, because we're resisting chaos, that's what happens to come up for us, and what we feel is the resistance and the chaos. So having a spiritual practice, having a vision of what peace actually feels like, what it looks like, personally for each one of us, and personally for this country and for the world. Because reminding you that we have adopted in this philosophy, Centers for Spiritual Living nationally, the concept of a world that works for everything and everyone. And being at peace. So in this community, we've talked about and adopted a whole concept of happiness. A world that is filled with happiness. And that's a little easier to wrap our minds around. It's a little easier to vision, because we each have a feeling of happiness. We have a feeling of joy. And sometimes we get trapped and confused in the feeling of peace and the feeling of, and what it looks like. Our responsibility is to bring to the imagined state the wholeness that we know exists in all situations. Begin with a desire. Neville Goddard said, you must imagine that you're already experiencing what you desire. So what is our desire for the people of our planet, for nature, for the resources that we have available to us? Can we imagine what that would be like in a world that works for everything and everyone? Do we have a vision for it? So here are the steps that are suggested by Reverend David Auld, who outlined this topic this week. Begin to see in your mind's eye a vibrant, synergistic, progressive, and wholly alive world. Then you begin emitting the vibratory nature of these qualities and begin to match them. So begin to see in your mind's eye what a peaceful world will look like, will feel like, will be like. And then in that imagining, you set up a vibration which causes that to come to you, which sets it up. Being clear about what it looks like, what it feels like. For me, it feels at confidence to move through this world fearlessly, to know that wherever I go, whatever I do, I can feel safe. Not necessarily physically safe, but emotionally safe also. To know that everyone I encounter, everyone I speak with, everyone that I interact with is for my highest and best good, as I am for their highest and best good. To not resist. The second step that he suggests is be still and know. So that calls us to come to a place of meditation, calls us to come to a place of introspection. And when I move through this world in that same sort of peaceful, introspective place and way, then I vibrate with the highest and best level of everyone I encounter. So having a vision and then being still and knowing, being peaceful and having the understanding that this is a safe world to move in. And when I have my own sense of personal safety, then that's the way the world shows up for me. So we come to a place where we align and become accountable to others. We find and interact with those that share our vision of peace, harmony, and safety. becomes vast. We interact with others who have a goal of peace. So then we become, and the third step is that we become united with our objective. We become, as cliche as it sounds, the peace that we seek. We are it. And as our world is peaceful, harmonious, it's like the Jell-O we talked about last week. It sets up a vibration everywhere. So David Alt had this suggestion, and I'm going to just share it with you because I think it's astonishing, actually. You know, we talk about, I speak of, and many of us here, talk about not listening to the news because it's so upsetting. He suggests, however, that we do watch the news. And from that place of noticing disharmony and chaos, he suggests that we look for the highest and best outcome then could come from that. Now there's a challenge. Orlando seems to have had some pretty bad juju this last week. So what can we take a look at? We can take a look at the Pulse shooting and see and extrapolate what good can come from that. As horrific as it was, there is good that has come from that circumstance and that situation. First off, it seems to take a horrific act to cause this country to step forward and come together. And that we notice that that is what has happened as a result of that incident in Orlando at the Pulse. People have stepped forward and been amazingly loving, generous. They've come together as the whole country has come together and said, wow, this is not what we stand for. This is not what we choose for our country. This is not what we choose. So in a very profound way, I believe, this has touched the psyche of the American people more deeply than any other crisis or circumstance has in the past. And when those kinds of things happen, it tends to cause us to clarify our values. To say, no, this shouldn't be happening and occurring in our world, in our country. So there's good that comes from that. We come to a place where we are moving toward harmony, acceptance, non-judgment. We come to a place that says, no, we choose more open, loving circumstances and situations for our country. And from those places of vision, of knowing clarity, of knowing what we want personally and culturally, then we can begin to take action that is appropriate for each one of us. What is in front of me to do? What is it that I need to do? And that doing comes from a place of spiritual maturity, from a place of our vision, and sometimes the thing to do, what is before me to do, is nothing. But sometimes what's before me to do is active. I think I shared with you that story about the Hindu man who was so upset about the imam being at the Parliament of World Religions, and how he was fixing to have a protest, and he was gathering people up to protest the imam from Saudi Arabia's presence at the Parliament of World Religions. And we had a conversation with him, and he wanted us to protest. But that was not for us to do. And he quoted Gandhi and said, Gandhi said, you must be politically active. That's for him to do. That's before him to do. What is it for me to do? And for me personally, and this is only my own personal standpoint, for me personally, what is in front of me to do is to be peaceful. To love from a deep, accepting way. To not deify anyone or anything. That's for me, personally. Now, I know that there's a lot of folks that want to take political action, want to go hold a sign in protest. And it takes people like that. But that's not for me to do. For me, it is to hold a vision of what a peaceful world looks like. To hold a vision of what tolerance and acceptance looks like. To hold a vision of inclusiveness. To hold a vision of harmony. To hold a vision of a world that works for everyone. To hold a vision of the ability of each one of us to travel and interact in peace everywhere. That's what's in front of me to do. That's what I call forth as my vision. So when we talk about today about cultivating a vision, I'd invite you to take some time and clarify what it is that you wish to create in your life, how you wish to vibrate and connect with the rest of the world. What is it that you wish your world to look like? love, there's acceptance, there's joy. Because no matter who we are and where we are, what we're doing in this world, at the very basis of it, we long for love, joy, and acceptance. So, I know that I have created for me that vision right here in this room. Because I love each one of you. Totally. Namaste.
Namaste.
So I'd invite Kate to join with me as we hold this community in love and in peace. I permit myself to create that vision right here, right now. Of love and harmony. Calm and peace. And as I hold that vision, I allow myself to step into it and wrap myself in it. I allow myself to know that the gift of the divine is the gift of the vision, the creative thought, the creative idea. And I accept that gift. And I accept the responsibility of it. I accept the responsibility of being the harmony, being the peace, being the love, acceptance that I seek. I call myself to that center, the core of my being, where I can meet with the divine. And feel total love. Feel total peace. Total joy. And I invite you to step into that place with me. To permit yourself to be surrounded by the divine vision, the divine feeling. Of love. That is your birthright. That is the birthright of this world. And so with sweet acceptance, I just celebrate that. And I invite you to join with me in the celebration by knowing that it is done, and by saying, and so it is.
That's right.
And so it is.